everybody, this is Rima. I'm using a filter. Isn't it amazing? I love it. I love the sketch. So want to make a quick video on your leadership style. It's going to be quick. I like this. What is your leadership style or your personality, in other words, also, because that will spill into your leadership style or your work style. And how does that impact your parenting style as well? And I posted that in short on Facebook and on WhatsApp status. Are you a task-oriented person, a people-oriented person, or an in-between? Both. And you will look at this as general overall in your life. In general, how do you approach? So I'm going to help you process and understand or get the clarity on you being able to find out which kind are you and how that works for you or against you in any situations or circumstances. Now, know that neither one is good or bad. So general perspective of, in general, like, right, in psychology, we're saying most of the things, most of the way of operating are not good or bad. Even in astrology, like, I am against astrologists that say planets are good or bad combinations. But yeah, it could be that in certain combinations, certain situations, depending on what's being called for or needed, some styles could be a bad fit. Right? Or it may not bring healthy outcomes. So we can look at it from healthy, unhealthy, constructive, or productive, and non-constructive, non-productive, as versus good or bad. There's no generic way of saying this is good or this is bad. Okay. So now, if you are a task-oriented person, what does that mean? Now, remember for this, again, there's a spectrum. The spectrum will range from, it's not a very large continuum, but the continuum is, if you're very task-oriented, it means that you really want to deliver outcomes. You're very focused on getting the work done, no matter what, right? Achieving an outcome. It could be something as simple as, if you're a student, you need to get your A. No matter what will happen, you will get your A. That's a task-driven person, if that's how you are as a person. Not for one activity, not for one time or one goal, in general. The other extreme is going to be the people orientation, where you, more than the task, will focus on how comfortable am I and how comfortable are others. And the focus will be on keeping all of the people, including yourself, comfortable, happy, and satisfied, as versus necessarily getting the work done or focusing on the task. And then the in-between, right? Now, in that continuum, we can have an additional two combinations of somebody who has the people-driven focus, but is more leaning towards the task-oriented, and then vice versa, as the people-oriented, but also has some of the task orientation as well. Now, if you are fully a task-oriented person, like I am, not fully, sorry, I am the in-between. I'm very much task-driven as a person, with focus on individuals and people as well, but more on the task-driven. My mantra will be work is worship. Work has to get done. And I'm saying this because it'll help you process and filter what kind of orientation do you have as a personality. I will forego many social events to get the work done. So I will say no to many social events. I will not attend many social events, invitations, and be okay with those friends or people or family being upset with me, not being happy with me. I'm okay with that as long as my work and my focus does not deter from whatever I need to deliver in my life. Now, that could be, for me, the task could be spending time with my daughter. The task can be earning the amount of money I need to earn and give the business that I need to give, the attention to my work and business that I need to give in a certain month, right, or days. But I will forego the people aspect if I have to, but not forego the task, no matter what. So task-driven people who are very task-driven, I am a combination of both, but more towards task. But if you're only task-driven person, then you're very task-driven. The more task-driven you are, the more disciplined you are. Very, very disciplined, right? So military style, military people, they have to get the work done. Like, you cannot afford to sleep, or you cannot afford to make somebody happy in military, let's say as an extreme example, to save your country. You've got to get the task done, right? So that's a task. Let me see if I can remove this. I don't want to be distracted though from my, I hope y'all are okay with this. I didn't think it will be like, I hope it's not a distraction. So if you're task driven, it's extremely good where there's a lot of discipline needed, where there is very strong deadlines. If you're task driven, that means you're very good at keeping to deadlines. You're very good at keeping the final goal in mind, and no matter what obstacles come your way, that's a very, very highly determined person, in other words. If you're generally task driven in everything, right? Your determination, your resilience to uncertainty, ambiguity, your resilience to obstacles, is very strong, very high. They also task-driven people generally have a higher self-esteem, self-worth, self-confidence, because you're not worried about what somebody else is thinking about you, right? Like, I won't be worried about saying no to events and my friends feeling upset about it. Even if I multiple times deny, like, I don't feel bad about, even if they're feeling bad, I don't feel bad. Like, I'm like, okay, you can feel bad about it. I'm okay with that. But I have to get my task done. So there is not a lot of dependency on other people's opinions or interference from that, or your self-worth is not dependent necessarily on other people. So confidence levels are generally high, and the belief in one's capability or competency is generally high with task-driven people. Now, but what is the downside with highly task-driven people? That they can be in a social environment, right? And we live in a social civilization where we're interdependent, so there can be less sensitivity for other people's emotions, thoughts, needs, considerations, right? Just the complete extremes would be a task-driven person will not care at all, right? It is the extreme. Like, and sometimes that's needed, like I said, in the military. You cannot worry about killing your opponent if you have to kill them to save your country. You cannot afford it, right? So you need to be very, very task-driven. Even if it hurts you, you've got to prioritize the task. So that's the strength. In a people-driven person, on the other extreme, is they're so concerned about, which is a plus and a minus both, right? We're so concerned about everybody else and comfort and them feeling accepted. Acceptance is the word there, right? Like in task-driven, getting the work done. In people-driven, feeling comfortable in a group and being liked and accepted, and liking and accepting others. So very high chance of somebody being extremely extroverted, very popular, very well known. If you know that you're a person who enjoys popularity, for you, if popularity is important, to be liked by others is very important. These are the characteristics of people-driven people orientation, right? That you strive and thrive on social recognition, other people acknowledging you, appreciating you. It's very important to you. And again, that's not good or bad. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying just good to be aware how that impacts you, right? And if you're people driven, the downside then is you're dependent on other people to feel good about yourself. You are dependent on you may compromise on the task not being done with the worry of everybody not being comfortable, everybody not agreeing on the same page, you not being comfortable, you not being unsure if you'll be accepted for doing the task and for going and jumping over other people's desires, objections, etc. So that's the two extreme. Now, in between the two extreme, you can have somebody who's more people-driven, so who's almost an extrovert, but also has some focus on, okay, well, we need to get the task done. So they may be good at being able to work in a team where you don't have very strong deadlines and you don't have very strong goals to reach that can completely depend on if the task is not done. For example, if there's a tech outage, the task needs to get done. The computer needs to be fixed. It's a task-driven objective. But in a project where you might rely heavily on teamwork and group, then you need to please the group and make sure that the group is united so that the task will get done, right? So you would be a great leader if you had to be put on a group, if you're more people orientation, where unity of the group, bringing the diversity together, keeping the group united will impact the outcome or the task, whether the task will get done or not. So, and you might be able to then now think about different work in your work. Where do you fit in? What is the requirement for your work, for your task, for your department? If you work in a team, if you're people orientation, you must work in an environment where there's social interaction and teamwork. You'll do very good at teamwork, right? Very good. But you'll be less independent. So if there's work that requires you to be very independent, if you're highly people orientation, if your people orientation is very high, your tendency to just get the work done on your own and just rely on yourself will be lower. So you need the support of other people, for example, right? Now, how do you take this into your parenting style? As a parent, for example, you would be more, if your people orientation, you will be more on praising your child, getting the work done through appreciating them. You're able to give them more time. You're more flexible. You're not as disciplined. Your children don't have as strong boundaries. There's more fun in the home. You will really think through vacations and holiday times and really give your family the comfort that they need because that's what you need. So you're going to give what you need, right? In a way. If you're a task-driven person on the other extreme, then as a parent, you're very, very strict. You're very disciplined. You teach them strong routines. You teach them to be very independent. So you teach them to be self-reliant and self-sufficient. But then, so that's the plus and the minus. And then there may not be as much fun, but there may be very big focus on reaching your goals and teaching them early on how to set goals for their life and achieve them. So you create strong leaders just like you are. In a very highly task-driven, and in a highly people-driven, you create a sociable personality, and not necessarily your child will be the same, but that will be a parenting style, for example. Now, same thing in relationships and in love. In your relationship, if your relationship is suffering or there's clashes, whether with love or friendships, etc., ask yourself what the clash is. Is it related to just task? And then you can get a lot of answers just from this. A task-driven person will be focused on, so for me, I am more task-driven. I'm more on that end with some people-driven. So I do come up as very high for teamwork. I really bring the morale of the team up. I do very well in teamwork. But ultimately, I want to be able to independently deliver outcomes. So great space for somebody who would like to be a manager and get the task done, but manage a team, right? Not just work alone on a system on my own. If you're very people-oriented extremely, then you're probably not going to be a leader. You would do very well, and that's, again, not a bad thing. You would do very well in keeping the team together. So you would be a great team player to have, especially when there are conflicts within the team and you're the person who might bring in peace, for example, right? So if you are more task-oriented, and if there are issues in your relationship, for example, you want to make sure that you're understanding, is your partner a social completely opposite on the other spectrum, in between? And that's where your communication style, what you're seeking from the relationship, you're resolving conflicts, will also depend on that. Like conflict resolution for a task-oriented person is, but what is the issue at hand? Let's resolve the issue. For the social orientation person, the problem is not the issue. They don't want to resolve the issue. They want to avoid it. There's avoidance. But they want to keep everybody happy. So they're like, what can we do to just keep peace? Right? So there's pros and cons to both. Again, there is not good or bad, but there are good fit and bad fit scenarios for each of these styles. And it can be really different from context to context, work to work, situation to situation, even with the same person. I think in parenting, it's very valuable to understand your parenting style, your orientation, and how that parenting style may be impacting your child, especially if they're a very different orientation than you are. So, if you find that there's a lot of power struggles with your child, then this is something to look into and see if you get any answers. Thank you for listening to me. I have to get going. I'm on a very strong deadline, and I'm a little 1 minute behind. I gotta go. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening. Once again, Reema Desai from The Guiding Star. I would love to know hear from you. You can text me. You can post comments here. What do you find out? Did it give you clarity whether you're task-oriented, people-oriented? How does that come in your way? What do you like about it? What has worked for you or not worked for you? I would love to hear that. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day. How do I end this?